Mr. Scott, let me explain our process to you.
Yes, sir.
First, I'm going to read some information into the record, and then the board will conduct a parole interview with you. At the appropriate time, we'll allow the participants who've indicated they wish to speak to have their input. Currently, today, we have someone speaking in opposition. At the end, you'll be allowed to make a brief statement before the board votes. Do you understand our process, sir?
Yes, sir.
This is the matter of John Scott, DOC number 124438, date of birth March 7th of 1953. He has a parole eligibility date of August the 1st of 2021. He's not eligible for good time. He has a full term date of August the 3rd of 2039. He is currently serving a 40-year sentence on the charge of aggravated incest after having been adjudicated a habitual offender. That sentence was pronounced on May the 14th of 2019. Mr. Scott, is that basically correct?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Scott, your case has been assigned to Mr. Pete Freeman. Mr. Freeman will be the first one on the panel to begin the interview process. Would you please answer any questions he may have?
All right.
Okay, Mr. Scott, how old are you presently?
69,
Okay, and how many years have you served on this charge?
23.
Okay. Scott, tell me a little bit about what happened that day. I mean, what went on? What was going on in your mind?
Well, it was just a lot of frustration, anger. And I basically did what the victim said I did, but I didn't complete the rape charge.
You mean you stopped, but you did
Yes.
start.
Nope.
Okay.
But I attempted, but I never had sex with her. I never raped her.
Okay. Did you bring some clothes with you to change and had a blanket in the woods waiting for this victim?
Oh.
You didn't bring no clothes with you to change into after the rape?
No, I had some clothes with me, but then I was going out of town to do a job in Sweetport. We was building a Circuit City over there on Burcoon.
Okay. Well, tell me about your other daughter. Did you ever rape your other daughter?
Which one?
The daughter that you thought was pregnant.
No, sir.
Well, what happened there? I mean, she's just lying and saying that you didn't try to do her lesson.
Well, all that's basically tied in. I really don't want to talk down on my family no more. You know, the damage that already been done, and I mean, if she said I did it, and basically if that's the only way I could go ahead on and redeem myself, okay, yeah, I did it.
I mean, I don't want you just to try to redeem yourself. I want to know what was going through your mind and why did you think you had to do these things to young girls?
Well, that's what I'm saying. What I'm saying, I don't care to talk down on them because there was a lot going on at that time, and I basically was trying to stop it and got caught up.
I mean, what was going on at that time?
Oh, well, oh, I hate to go through all this. Well, it all started back when one Sunday I was sitting on the train track. I was disgusted because of the things that was going on at my apartment. And when the mother go to work, I would always stay gone because the girls was always trying to cross me out because of the things that they were doing, and I was trying to stop it. So I met this little girl on the train track that Sunday, and she asked me what was to do in my hometown, and I told her basically nothing. So I thought about it. Well, look, she might be a good influence on my daughter, so I carried her home with me. And a couple of days later, when I came from work, the mama told me, said, "You remember that girl you brought home?" I said, "Yes." She said, "My daughter had jumped on and beat up." I said, "For what?" So when she told me, I didn't think nothing else about it. So a few nights later, I was walking over into this, the hills of Graham subdivision, and I took a shortcut across the baseball field. And I come back the same way. and I heard a bunch of voices off in one of the dugouts, and I stopped the people in to take a look, see what was happening. So it was about 5 or 6 dudes in this dugout with this little girl, and I couldn't see who it was because the light only shined so far down because it was a dugout. They stayed down off in the hole, and I could see from basically from here down, but I couldn't see the face up. So I didn't know who it was. So she would pick one at a time and walk down to the football stadium with them and come back, take a nutting go around and come back. And when they come back the last time, they saw me and she said, "I know you." I said, "I know you too." She said, "I'm gonna call the sheriff, call the police, tell them you tried to rape me." So she called the lady, and the lady that came was a young lady that I was in school with named Doris Hassel. And she told the officer that I tried to rape her. And she asked me, was it true? And I said, no. I said, let's go up to the town hall and make her tell the truth. So we went to the police station and she got the little girl in the back to talk to her. And she scared her some kind of way. And the little girl told her what happened and told her that she had lied on me. And that basically turned out to be the little girl that I found on the train track that I took home. And come to find out, my daughter jumped on her and beat her up because of a 20, I think it was a 20-year-old boy that was called my daughter that was in the dugout with her and 3 or 4 more guys. I didn't know who it was. I didn't see the face. She was the one that told him who it was. I didn't know. So that's how everything.
That really had nothing to do with the race of what?
It didn't, but that was the influencing part. I mean, this little girl was the one that planted that seed. I never raped my daughter.
Okay, you claiming you're innocent. All right, let's move on. How many children do you have?
All together,
Yeah,
I've been told 17.
you've been told 17.
Yes, sir.
Do you have any contact with any of these kids?
Yes, sir.
Which ones you have contact with?
Johnette, my baby daughter by my wife, and my oldest daughter by my wife.
And there's no use for me to ask, what would you say to the victim? Because you claim there was no victim.
What do you say?
Said you claimed there was no victim.
Hmm.
He was
On this
saying
one?
there's no need for him to ask you, what would you say to the victims? Because you're saying you didn't do it.
Well, I apologize for my action. And I take full responsibility for everything, but I'll plead guilty just to go ahead and just keep from talking down on my family. I'll take the charge because I done did the time.
You have very strong law enforcement opposition. The DA says that you already got a reduced sentence in a plea bargain. And all others are opposed. Your family, Keisha Scott, she's not opposed, but everybody else is opposed. Tell me about these 2 escape charges. What was that about?
Escape charge?
In Rapides and in Lincoln.
Okay, the one in Lincoln, it basically happened behind a young girl that I was in love with. And I did it because she told me to do it. And
Told you to
I got,
escape?
sir?
Told you to escape?
Yes, sir. No, I escaped by myself. She told me to do it, and I did it. And I was caught in January of '80, and I will change from January to August. And it was a minister that lived next door to my grandfather that was working out there as a guard. And the toy truck blew up on him one day, and that hot toy shot all 350-degree toy, and it burned all the skin off him. And when he come back from the hospital, they made him the jailer down to the courthouse. So he still had to come out there where we was at to get the food for the inmates up in the jail. And he told me he was gonna get me down there to be trustee. And I made trustee even after escape.
Oh, okay. All right, what was the aggravated battery charge in Lincoln Parish about? I see
That
it
was
was but what was it about?
on a police officer.
Yeah.
Okay. The young lady that I had the 3 girls by, Cat Owen, she was quoting the girl brother that I had 9 kids by, and he had tried to run over me 3 different times with my children in the car with him. And if I hadn't heard them screaming and hollering, I would have known he was finna run over me, and I jumped out of the way. And when I jumped up trying to catch him, I never could catch him because he was in a car and I was walking. So one day I passed by her apartment and the kids was outside playing, and they called me and told me the mama said, "Come here." So when I went inside to talk to her, she asked me would I come fix Thanksgiving dinner for them because she was sick. And I said, yeah. So when I got ready to leave, this guy came through the red light and he saw I had a 2x4 across my shoulder. And he stopped when he saw the 2x4 and he went on the seat of his car. And when I ran across the road, they hit him with 2x4. The police jumped out and run up there and stuck his hand between them. And as I was coming down 2x4, it hit the police on thumb and say, I don't know whether it broke it or what. But the judge told me, said the only reason why he wasn't going to give me 5 years was because the police officer said that I was hitting at someone else.
Okay, what have you learned from the classes you've taken since you've been in prison?
Ooh, it's been so long since I finished that anger management, but it was a nice subject. And I wished I could remember all of it. Every time I got shook down, I lost paperwork and I couldn't keep up with it to keep it in my head. It's only maybe 3 or 4 of them that I can remember.
What the
And
sex class, what you learned from that?
From who?
Sex offender class, sex offender treatment.
Well, I learned a lot from it, but basically I can't remember it because they threw away all my paperwork. But the 27 risk factors, I liked them, but I can't remember 2 of them. That's blame and denial. The rest of them will come to me as I think about them. But just off top, I can't remember.
Okay, your custody is medium. You've had 12 write-ups. Last one was in 4/11 of 14. Warden, what could you tell me about Mr. Scott?
Not a whole lot. He hasn't been here. He's only been here with us for a couple of months. He hasn't been any problems from us. I do feel that he does need additional sex offender treatment since he really can't remember. It didn't really sink in whatever he took. So,
Thank you, Warden.
Thank you. We'll now hear from the opposition.
Good morning.
Good morning. Would you please tell us what you'd like us to know, please?
Yes, sir. To the board, first, I just want to say a huge thank you for allowing me this opportunity, as many survivors often lose their voice. I speak today with the hopes of you hearing me, as doing this often feels like re-victimization. You asked why my father, John Henry Scott, should or should not be released from prison on parole. Here are a few reasons he should not be released, but know that this list could go on and on. I understand that laws and policies change, but natural life in prison should be just that. I have to live with this every day. More specifically, I told you in my last letter how this affects me, but here it is up to date. On Mother's Day, May the 8th, 2022 was the worst day I could have as a mother. Instead of celebrating motherhood, I was triggered because this was the day that I was raped by my father. On June the 2nd of 2022, I had another surgery to help my soon-to-be born baby, Mr. Scott's grandchild, to come into this world safely. These stitches, also known as the cerclage, will not be removed until I'm about 37 weeks. This is all due to the trauma and scarring my father caused to my cervix. I've now had a total of 3 surgeries due to his raping me. Man said that I wouldn't be able to have children, and as complex as it sounds, God saw differently. He not only blessed me with 1, not 2, but soon to be 3 children. Would you like for this to be your daughters, granddaughters, or wives, etc.? I believe that if he did it to me and my sister, he would do it to others. What life does he know outside of prison walls? Do you want to protect our communities and our state? On July the 2nd, 2022, I was triggered by my own reflection because all I saw was my father, Mr. Scott. I am his splitting image. I was triggered knowing that this day would come. Do you want this for our communities? Of course, your loved ones may not be related to him, but victims face self-esteem issues, suicidal ideations, PTSD, and so much more. And even if you place restraining orders on him, he will tread up to the fine line because he's very clever. For example, if you say not to go within 100 feet, he will stalk and watch at 99 feet. In fact, the days when authorities were looking for him, he was watching everything from the loft and so much more. What I'm saying is a criminal often knows how to work around the laws. They know how to attack in ways that victims don't leave marks, bites, and bruises, which is our God-given natural defenses. That was me. I couldn't scream due to socks being stuffed in my mouth. I was tied so that I couldn't fight back. And let's not forget that Mr. Scott's smartness to cut every hair and eyebrows off of his body. That was his efforts to leave no evidence. That was our plan. A father who rapes his 14-year-old daughter, then contemplates kidnapping her would do the same to yours. Again, I ask you, do you want this to be your loved one? Lastly, if you are concerned about his age, that means nothing to me. My father was older then and he knew right from wrong. Doesn't the same apply? No matter how old I get, rape has affected every aspect of my life, from self-esteem to parenting, to trusting, intimacy, childbearing, and being able to trust the courts and law enforcement to certain degrees. I ask you, do you want this to be your loved one? I believe you get the picture. Just keep our families, our communities, and our state safe by keeping my father, John Henry Scott, in prison. God bless you.
Thank you very much, ma'am. We appreciate the courage it took to be here today to talk with us. Thank you. Mr. Scott, anything you'd like to say before the board votes?
I don't understand you.
Is there anything you wish to say to the board before we vote? Would you like to make a statement to us, or would you like to say anything at all to us?
Nah, no.
Thank you. Mr. Freeman?
First off, I want to thank that victim for speaking. I know it takes a lot of courage, and we really appreciate it. You know, Mr. Scott, you're in total denial, even though all the evidence points out to the fact that you did rape your daughter. And I just can't see giving you a chance right now until you can admit your own demon and let yourself become to grips with what you did. So at this point, I'm going to vote to deny you for.
Thank you very much.
Likewise, you don't need papers with you to have learned something. It should be in you, not on some paper. You have no insight whatsoever as to what you did, how horrible it was, how much you damaged the victims in this case. We talked about the thing that you remember with denial, and I forgot what the other thing you said, but you're doing both of those things. You just haven't learned anything. And so perhaps you need to repeat all things as a second treatment, but I'm not entirely sure that that's going to help, because you convinced yourself, lied to yourself about what happened. And I don't know if there's anything that's going to change that, but because of a strong opposition from the victim as well as law enforcement, my vote today is likewise to deny.
Thank you, Ms. Jackson. Mr. Scott, my vote likewise is the same for all the same reasons. I do hope that you repeat sex offender treatment. Think about what it is you did. You pretty much admitted the crime of rape. You say you didn't complete it, but you really need to understand the significance of what you did. I hope that you can get some deep understanding of what you did and what you did to your daughter. Good luck to you. We've done it. Warden, thank you very much for your help. The time is 9:28. You'll be adjourned at Raymond the board.
Thank you. Y'all have a good day.
Did you need proof that evil existed. There you have it. And, he was given a life sentence without the possibility of parole. But because of Act 122, which is a positive act, right? It helps people in Louisiana who are locked up for life for possession with intent to distribute an opportunity at parole. But somehow, the sneaky people who pass legislation, they always like to pass other things in these acts. And apparently he falls under the bucket as someone who can now get parole. And you know that his good time date is 1939? He's going to be out in 6 years. Regardless of whether he makes parole or not. 6 more years, Louisiana. Be proud of yourself. Did you hear what he said? We have the court transcript. We're going to go over that. That was one of the better survivor speeches that I have heard. She listed the reasons, and as she said, that list could have been much longer. Mother's Day was the worst day for her because that was the day that he did that to her. She's had to have 3 surgeries just so she can have a baby due to what he did to her. She can't look in her own reflection because she looks like him. She couldn't scream because socks were stuffed in her throat. She couldn't run because she was tied up. And he planned the entire thing. His biological daughter. When they ask him, how did it lead up to this? And I'm glad they let him talk it through because sometimes they just cut it off. I wanted to see the depravity of this monster. As he explained it, he gives a whole speech about how he found a little girl on the train tracks. And what do you think he really did to that little girl? Well, he took her home, that little girl. Then he says that his daughters beat up the little girl. Then he says that he was walking to the baseball field and he heard a bunch of noise. And there was a little girl in a dugout. And there was a bunch of guys there, 6 dudes. And then this little girl was taking each dude to go have, and then the little girl saw him and said, "Oh, you're the one that did that to me." And then she went to the police station. And then Mr. Freeman's like, "But this has nothing to do with why you sexually assaulted your daughter." And he said, "That was what planted the seed for me to do that to her." And now the way that I understand his story is that he is claiming that when he took the little girl home and his daughters beat her up, and then she accused him of sexually assaulting her, the little girl, that it was his daughter's fault for beating her up because she accused him, and that's what planted the seed. So it's all her daughter's fault. That was my understanding of his story. And he'll be out in 6 years. They didn't talk about his risk score, but I bet you I feel like I can almost guarantee it that it is a low risk score because we see it over and over and over again. They just didn't say those words. That warden, he had his arms crossed. I don't think he could have been farther away from that inmate. I do appreciate when I see the wardens as disgusted as we are. Thank you. Thank you, Richard, for providing this. 2002, it was decided he was convicted of aggravated incest. He was also a third felony offender, by the way, which we see people locked up as third felony offenders, life sentences, and it's just that have served more time for selling. I'm not kidding, for selling just like some MDMA. On May 8th, 1999, the defendant and the victim, his 14-year-old daughter, left the residence to attend a relative's funeral. This was to attend a relative's funeral. The defendant told the victim that they were going to walk to the home of a person who would give them a ride to the funeral. He then led the girl onto a trail in the woods. Remember, the girl is his daughter, telling her it was a shortcut to her home. Shortly after entering the woods, the defendant demanded the victim, his 14-year-old daughter, to undress. She refused and began to scream. The defendant forced her to the ground, removed her clothing, stuffed a sock in her mouth to muffle her cries for help. The defendant first penetrated the victim with his fingers, and then he completed the act. Afterwards, he began crying and praying. He stated that he was sorry and told her not to tell her mother what had happened. He then allowed the victim to leave the area. She returned home and telephoned her sister and grandmother to report it. The police, and good for her for calling the police right away. The police, and she was so impressive, man. What a survivor. What a speech. The police were summoned and the victim was taken to the hospital for medical examination. On August 2nd, 1999, the defendant was arrested at Fort Wood, Texas. So it actually took a while. May 8th is when it happened, and he didn't get arrested until August 2nd. Maybe that's because he ran to Texas. I don't know. He was charged with aggravated incest. A jury convicted him as charged. He went to a jury trial, and the defendant was arrested. What? You can't make it up. He was originally sentenced to just 20 years. 20 years. A judge gave him 20 years. That's why he has the chance of being free with act, because it was the habitual offender bill which has him on the life sentence. A judge gave him 20 years after having a jury trial. Here's the proof. You can't make this up. He was found guilty of a crime where I do believe the ultimate punishment is allowed as the maximum sentence. Certainly life imprisonment. And a judge said 20 years? Why? Okay, I just paused it and did some research because I couldn't believe what I was reading. But actually, look, this is what the judge was maximum allowed to give. A jury convicted his charge, and he was sentenced to 20 years of hard labor, which was the maximum term for the sentence. And then I checked the statute. And true enough, here it is, the maximum charge in Louisiana is 20 years. How? Why? Um, it's unbelievable. Here it is. A person convicted of aggravated shall be fined in the amount not to exceed $50,000 or imprisoned with or without hard labor for a term not less than 5, no more than 20 years. That's there you go. Blame the legislator. You can't make it up. How is that law passed by someone? How is it? Oh, no. You do this to your little daughter. You cause all the but the most we can give you is 20-year sentence. You know, the whole idea of protecting our kids is not that important. God, it's impossible to believe. So then now actually good for this for those in charge. They gave him the habitual offender bill. They introduced the sentences of the 1988 conviction for distribution of marijuana, 1995 conviction of simple escape, and they did make him a third-time felony offender. And that's why with the new act, where they found these felony offender laws to be inhumane, and that's why he's allowed parole. That's it. And they sentenced him to life, but no, he has a chance of parole because of that act. 522. And it's insane. At least the parole project wasn't here, right? Oh my gosh. At least the parole project wasn't here. You wouldn't even believe part of his appeal. This is crazy. Part of his appeal, he argued that there was no proof that he's the father. So he shouldn't have been an incest charge. Can you imagine? You can't make this stuff up. I mean, this appeal, he goes on and on about it's imagine being an attorney and having to write an appeal for this monster who's gotten just a 20-year sentence after going to trial. You just, the mother of the victim testified that the defendant was the father of 3 or 5 children, one of whom was the victim of this instant offense. That at the time she became pregnant with the victim, she did not have relations with other men, and that she never told the defendant that he was not the victim's father. Also, the victim testified that the defendant is her father, and she called him daddy. She also testified that she was accepted by the defendant's family as his daughter, and that she called the defendant's mother grandma. That was his defense. And finally, the defendant declared that he was the victim's father in an August 1998 acknowledgement of the paternity, which was admitted into evidence. So finally, they did prove it. Yes, you are actually the father. What you committed was incest, not just a sexual assault on a little girl. How is it a 20-year maximum? That makes no sense. It makes no sense. You could get life for doing the same thing to a fully grown woman in Louisiana. Why can you not get life doing it to your own daughter? It's just, that's madness. I can't get over that. And smart people, right, who went to law school and work in government, they actually put ink on pen. If you do that to your daughter, the most you could get is 20 years. And as far as I know, that statute, which we just looked at, is still valid. How? The defendant was initially charged with 2 counts of distribution. Okay, pursuant to the plea of Beacon, the state did not dismiss the second count of distribution, but also agreed not to file an arson charge then pending against the defendant. Wow, what an arson charge pending. As to the present charge of aggravated incest, the defendant also faces prosecution for 2 counts of forcible of his other teenage daughters. He was facing 2 counts, which they let go, which they did not bring on to him. Rather than force the defendant's minor daughters to testify in the presence of their father and a courtroom full of strangers about their assaults, the state asserts that it offered the defendant a package deal in exchange for guilty pleas. However, the defendant rejected the offer and the instant charge went to trial. And the DA does not show up to support the survivor because they don't care. Because they don't care. Our system is broken. It is a system where children are straight up not. I mean, you have a law that is in place that says if you do this to your child, the maximum sentence you can get is 20 years. And that makes no sense. This is why we do this, so we can show the insanity of the system that is law in the state of Louisiana. You wouldn't believe it if you didn't see it, but here you go.
4273, you are a 4th class offender, parole eligibility date 8/1/2021, not eligible for good time life sentence, possession with intent to distribute meth, let's see, MDMA, 3 counts, possession with intent to distribute MDMA, habitual offender. Okay, does that sound correct?
Yes, sir, that's correct.
All right, Ricky, how old are you?
45,
45?
45,
How many years have you been incarcerated?
almost 20 years.
And what's your current status there? You're a trustee,
No, sir, medium class.
medium class, all right? What do you do around the facility?
I work on maintenance at Camp D, doing different sorts of maintenance, working on cell doors, plumbing, just maintenance around the camp.
So what you do? You're a drug seller, user, or both?
I was a user, I was an addict, and I ended up selling drugs to support a habit.
So do you have a high school diploma or GED?
I have a GED, sir.
Okay. So I've looked, obviously, your attorney, gave us a lot of good information. I've gone through all of them. You have a lot of recommendations. You've taken a lot of classes. You've done a lot of good things. I'd like to ask you, obviously, about your discipline. You've been in jail for a long time, and I see you had a contraband in 2022. You had a contraband in 19. You had a contraband in 18. You had looks like fighting in 18. Tell me about your disciplinary write-ups. What was the contraband in 22?
22.
Yeah.
So, when I was getting off of the drugs, I was still making bad decisions. I was focused on, stop using drugs, and I was rationalizing like it wasn't a criminal charge, it's just a phone. But it was the same type of thinking that was getting me put back in prison. And I noticed that it was a problem. And then, I lost a lot from that. And I went and took some classes.
You had a phone, you said?
So
A phone in 2022? Is that what you said?
Yeah, that's what you asked me about, right?
Right, no, I did ask you, I'm just trying to figure out, you said you had just gotten off of drugs, and I'm just trying to figure that out.
I
You've
was-
been for 19 years. Had you
When
had
I-
some positive screens while you've been in there?
It was August 24th, 2018 when I stopped using the drugs. I was going through, I went through a period. You know, my daughter got taken. My mother died on Father's Day in 2017. And I was, you know, I had to go through some things.
So,
And
so
I was
the
turning to
18
drugs.
the disciplinary in 18 was what was that contraband? Drugs in 18? That's 7/15/18.
Can you give me 1 second? Is that it?
Yeah, 7/15/18.
Oh, that was a cigarette. That was
Okay,
a cigarette. That was
okay,
a cigarette.
8/24/18.
That was intoxication.
Okay, and it said, and you just said in August is when you decided to stop using. So it's the end of August.
Yeah, it was August on that last intoxication. That's, you know, I had to really start looking at my life.
And what was 11/7/19?
That was a phone.
So you had phones on the last two.
Yeah, the phone, last two were phones.
Okay, and so you decided that in at the end of August 18 that you were done, you had enough, because I know you'd taken a lot of classes, and so.
You know, that last one, it was like, you know, I was sitting in a cell and I just really started thinking about my life. All the choices I made. I always came to prison for it. You know, I was using drugs, and the same thing that I was using, trying to, you know, ease that pain was just causing more trouble. And you know, I had just made a decision in my life. You know, I wanted to change. I didn't want to keep doing the same thing over and over. And you know, when I started out on that, you know, it wasn't easy at first, but you know, I started getting in school, started working on my sobriety, getting my certification in generators and electrical systems, and you know, I've been doing good for the last 5 years. It's on my sobriety.
So what have you been doing for your sobriety? What have you've taken, thinking for a change? You've taken, have you done living in balance?
Thinking for a change, but living in balance. Cage rage. These were done early in my sentence. I continue to do 12 steps AA every day. I do that every day.
So what have you
but
done
thinking for a change.
since you had the intoxication? What have you taken?
Since I had that last intoxication, I've gotten 100 hours to cuckoo. I'm in victim awareness right now. I continue to do NA every day. I was in sober group and I did that.
So you had all the other ones before that last one. You haven't had any long-term substance abuse treatment ever?
No, sir.
So what's your plans if you to be, well, let me ask you this. You haven't been checked or drug tested since, have you been drug tested since 18, since?
Sir,
Yeah.
I can take a drug test any day right now. I can take one. If
But
that
you
makes
have,
you feel good.
I'm just asking. I'm asking.
No, I haven't. I've
Okay.
had, if I was using drugs, I wouldn't be having this conversation with you today. I'd be in the cell.
I'm just curious. I'm just curious if you been tested since then? I'm just curious. So what's your plans if you were to be released today? Where are you gonna go? What you gonna do?
My short-term plan is to go with Mr. Kerry Myers to the parole project, and you know, while I'm there, take advantage of the programs and the resources that they have available. You know, get my meetings and a sponsor put in place, and you know, just kind of fortify everything. You know, just get used to, you know, being out in society. You know, I've been gone for almost 20 years. You know, I don't need to take one big giant leap out. You know, I need to take baby steps. You know, And that was my short-term plan there. And, while I'm there, I have a job lined up and, just have everything put in place for when
What you gonna do? What kind of work you
decide
gonna
to
do?
leave.
What kind of work you do? You have a lot of, it's like you have a lot of skills.
I have a job lined up at TT Barge in Donaldsonville, doing some electrical work over there. I think there's a letter in there somewhere.
Are you going back to the same area that you got in all this trouble?
Absolutely not, sir. That I'm not going back to St. Tammany Parish. Once I leave, if I'm released, I leave the parole project. I'm going to stay with my cousin who lives in Baton Rouge. She goes to Church of Healing Place, and I want to get involved with that, and just continue living a simple, clean, sober life. And be around my daughter.
So are you going to NAA? I mean, a couple times a week? What are you doing?
Yes, yeah, I go a couple times a week. Once a week back here.
Yeah, back there.
Every other week, they have some guests. A lot of it, I do on my own. I have a mentor back here. His name's Dale Craig. And even though when we don't having a class, he's there talking to me, and that having that has helped me a lot. And keeping me, out of trouble in the way I've been going. It was a few people that come along in my life since I stopped using drugs that gotten me to the point where I am today.
Warden, you got any input for us?
His reference to back there, Mr. Kelsey, he's currently at Camp D. He's in one of our out camps. So they have once a week. They do AANA once a week. So that's that reference. For that, he's basically, like he said, and like you've seen in his record, with his write-ups prior to 18, or prior to that last intoxication in August of 18, he's had several write-ups. Since then, he's had these two, one for smoking a cigarette, and obviously tobacco is contraband here now, and then the cell phone in 22. He's gotten some maintenance work done here for us. Looks as, he does have those two, and I'm not downplaying those two contrabands. As far as his sobriety, looks as though he has turned that corner and been able to stay clean here for going on 5 years.
Okay. Thank you, Warden. All right, we'll hear from Kerry Myers.
Good afternoon, Kerry Myers with Louisiana Parole Project. Mr. Tisdale is a skilled and talented person. He spent his time obtaining those skills. He is employable. As you have seen, he's already got employment. Working with IPNO, we are prepared to assist Mr. Tisdale in his transition. Parole Project will be providing his short-term transitional programming and assistance. We will get him a substance abuse evaluation and ensure that he follows those recommendations. Not that we have to ensure, as you can see from the last 5 years, he wants to follow those recommendations. He knows that his sobriety is everything, particularly if he wants a relationship with his daughter, which is in the conversations with him is the most important thing to him. He has a long-term plan. He has a stable long-term plan. He's, as I said, he has gainful employment skills. So we would just ask this board, Parole Project will provide him with the transitional services. We'll work in conjunction with IPNO to help him through his long-term assistance. We just ask this board to grant his parole today.
All right, we'll hear from Ms. Janet now.
Mr. Kelsey, actually, Ms. Janet is not speaking. It's going to actually be Mr. Tisdale's cousin, Kimberly, who's here with us. I apologize for
Don't
did.
see that name on here, but Kimberly, you can make a brief statement.
Hi,
You can say so.
Yeah.
hi, I'm Kimberly Schultz. I'm Ricky's first cousin. I've known Ricky all of my life. Ricky and I had very different childhoods growing up. I apologize. My parents were very strict. They set a lot of boundaries for us. We had rules. I know from growing up that Ricky did not have the structure. And because of that, I think he got in a lot of trouble as a teenager and then as a young adult. He was never a mean or hateful person to me. He was always very kind and compassionate. And I always thought he was really funny and incredibly smart, who just really needed structure and direction. He had a lot to give the world and knew where to put it. Through my many conversations with Ricky over the years, I've seen him grow up in prison. He's told me about the classes and the programs, thank you, that he's taken and the struggles he's had dealing with his addiction. He's expressed to me on multiple occasions that he never wants to be a part of that world again, a world of drugs and making those poor decisions. I know Ricky struggled over the last 20 years, but in the last 5 years, I've seen a remarkable change in Ricky. I hear it in his voice when he talks about his sobriety and the programs he's taken that helped him get to the bottom of why he made those choices to be involved with drugs and be in that scene. And I also hear it in his voice when he talks about his daughter, Michaela. It's the most important thing to him. I've seen a change that I've not seen before, truly. I know Ricky is committed to living a clean and sober life, and I'm prepared to help him with that. I live in Baton Rouge. I'll be welcoming him to my home post Louisiana Parole Project if he's granted release. My family's gonna be there for support, to encourage him to get to his weekly meetings, and to be there for him when things like life take over, grief and frustration. He's gonna come over for family dinners, birthday parties with my children, or just when he needs to have a safe space. Ricky and I have also talked about going to service at the Healing Place Church in Baton Rouge where I attend. He's attending their men's support groups, the small groups they have for men to get closer relationship with God. The Ricky that I know, that I see now, has shown me that he is committed. He's committed to living a life substance-free. That just wants to work and be a continuing presence in his daughter's life. I truly, truly believe if he is granted release, that he will stay on the path that he has chosen for himself. Thank you.
All right, thank you. What about Dr. Virginia White? Is she around? Is that somebody we could speak to?
Yes. Hi, good afternoon. My name is Virginia White. I'm the client service specialist at the Innocence Project, New Orleans. And I would just like to take a moment to provide just a brief overview of Mr. Tisdale's remarkable journey and his strong reentry plan. Some things have all, oh, I'm sorry.
No, you definitely could just give us his plan. We have gone through the file, we have everything. It's been thorough. So you tell me what his plan is.
Okay, yes, sir. So it's already been mentioned, he plans to go to LPP. So Innocence Hypno, we also provide reentry support, and we will be coordinating those services with LPP just to ensure he has strong support with getting to meetings, also getting to his job, and he also has strong family support. And his dedication to rehabilitation is evident in the multiple times that he's completed AA and NA programs, and he's incorporated those lessons into daily life and decision making. So a lot of the triggers are things that he struggled with coping within the past. He now has the skill set and tools to respond to those situations in a healthy way. Basically, so over the past 2 decades, Mr. Tisdale has shown remarkable dedication to personal growth and accountability. His journey towards that personal accountability and positive change is commendable, and it also supports a strong reentry plan. And as you can see, all of the support that he has here today. So I hope that you will consider that, and I will wrap it up there. Thank you for your time.
Thank you so much. Thank you. All right, Ricky, would you like to make a statement on your behalf, and then we'll let Caitlin wrap it up at the end?
Yes, sir. I'd like to thank you for the opportunity to speak. Before I came to prison, I was a person. I was selfish. I didn't follow the rules. I made a lot of bad decisions. I didn't know who I was, and I really didn't have control over my core self. I kept making the same mistakes of, going back to the same environment and around the same people, when I get out of prison. And obviously the things I was doing wasn't working. One of the problems, I wasn't being put in prison for very long periods of time. So I wasn't trying to change that behavior that got me here in the first place. So, it took getting this life sentence and to hit rock bottom to really start to actually want to change. This was the biggest transformation for me because, I learned that before I could go back in society, and function as an individual who can appreciate the freedom and the people around me, I had to dig deep down inside to discover all my character defects and address the root causes in order to be successful. I needed to learn how to respect myself and respect others and stay committed to personal positive growth. Now I'm someone, I value my sobriety and my education and the people's opinion of me, and what my daughter thinks of me. Sorry. I want to be a positive role model for her, support her, encourage her, and encourage her not to make some of the same mistakes that I made, and be that loving, caring father that she deserves. It's my hopes today that this boy can see the positive changes I made within myself and my commitment to my sobriety, and give me a chance to prove to you, not only you, but to me, that I can be successful in my reentry in society. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Caitlin, would you like to wrap it up?
Yes, if I may just briefly, good afternoon. My name is Caitlin Newswanger. I'm a staff attorney with Innocence Project New Orleans Unjust Punishment Project. And I just wanted to kind of touch, you brought up Mr. Tisdale's contraband write-up, the most recent from last year. But I think that this write-up in itself is the best example of Mr. Tisdale's growth, because I think it took this for him to learn and grow and gain so much from his education and what he's worked towards to get his certification, and then to have this write-up and realize how much he had lost. But when that happened, Mr. Tisdale did not get high. He did not relapse. Instead, he said, okay, I'm going to change my path. And he enrolled in Thinking for a Change in the Tapuco class, and he got it together. And I have to say that Mr. Tisdale's growth started way before that. He has had 5 years of sobriety, which those of us who know people who suffer with addiction, 5 years is a really long time. And it's very clear how his path led to this 5 years. The 2018 intoxication write-up, that's when it stopped. He got into Christian ministry. He met a pastor who he reached out to support. This pastor led him to education where he was able to thrive and flourish. And that is how he's been able to maintain his sobriety, is through education and developing his skills, which have made him very appealable to employers. Mr. Tisdale spoke of his transformation, but I do want to point out that, it's not necessarily a transformation, but more of an evolution. Mr. Tisdale has evolved, and he's going to continue to evolve because he's going to continue down this path that he's created for himself, and that the Parole Project and our client services has created for him. He is an incredibly emotionally intelligent person. He is a father who has been present continuously in his daughter's life, and he is a beloved family member and friend. And these have kept him going through his nearly 2 decades of incarceration. And for these reasons, we request that this board would grant Mr. Tisdale's parole under any conditions deemed
Right,
appropriate. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, the panel's prepared to vote. Ricky, man, got a lot going on, Ricky. You got a lot going on, man. I went thoroughly through your file. Thanks to council for putting all that information in there. You know, look, I looked through it at length. Your rap sheet's terrible. And you know, look, I am terribly disappointed in your write-ups, in the recent write-ups. And so I had all the intentions after looking at everything I looked through of really denying you, to be honest with you. But you had a good interview, right? That's why we do this stuff. You know, you have good interview, you got great support system, you got great family support system. Again, I am disappointed in the write-ups. That is a thinking, you know, a cognitive thought process to have done that. But you know, listen, you're headed in the right direction. You're saying the right things. You're doing the right things. This is my concern. Okay. My concern is that you do have a drug and alcohol problem. You know that, and you haven't had it in 5 years, and that's great. And it is difficult to stay sober. I know a lot of people with similar problems. So what I've seen is I haven't seen really any substantial long-term substance abuse treatment for you. And so for me, in order to feel good about you, I want you to go home. I mean, you got a great family. They love you. You love them. We want you to go home and stay home. We don't want you to go home and kind of hang and maybe get back. We want to give you the tools to go home. So my vote today would be to grant your parole to the Steve Hall long-term substance abuse program. That's an intense rehab program from DOC. It's the best we have to offer, and it's helped many folks. And you're yearning for wanting more. You're wanting more. Well, here's your opportunity, and you've done everything else that hadn't worked. So you know, here's an opportunity that I'm giving you to go to Steve Hall Intensive Substance Abuse Program. It'll be the long-term treatment program. Is sit on the front row as soon as you complete it, and you'll be released. You'll be released with to Louisiana Parole Project to get that squared away. You'll have you'll follow up whatever substance abuse recommendations they give you. Want you to attend NAA 3 times a week, and you'll have a curfew from 10 p to 6 a. Now I'm just one vote, but I just I look. I know you want to go home now. I know your family wants you to go home now. I want you to go home and stay home. You know, so I think this is the best from what I've seen, from what I hear, from what I read. This is the best opportunity for you to be clean and clear for the rest of your life and do the things you want to do. Just one vote. Mr. Freeman.
Okay, you know, I've listened to you too, and you know, at first when I looked at your supervision record and all of that, I had my doubts also. But your problem is drugs, there's no doubt about it. And as Mr. Kelsey said, you know, we want to make sure you stay home. And so I changed my mind, and I'm also going to vote to grant with the stipulation that you complete the Steve Halls and get everything you can out of it. I mean, this is 9 months for the rest of your life. Okay, because if you get convicted again, when they see you were habitual one time and you came back, it's not going to be good. So take advantage of this, and good luck to you.
Mr. Marabella.
My vote would be the same for the same reasons. Good luck to you.
All right, 3 votes to grant the Steve Hall Substance Abuse Program, long-term 9 months. You'll have follow-up substance abuse, whatever they recommend. You have NAA 3 times a week, curfew 10 p to 6 a, and you'll go to the Parole Project. 3 votes to grant. Good luck to you, man. You got a great family. You need to hug them big. Thank you. We'll adjourn 1:33. Thank you, Warden.
Thank y'all.
Go to my meeting.
So, of course, I'm happy that he got paroled. I'm quite happy that he's going to be going home. Of course, after the Steve Hoyle program, we know how important that is. But what I'm going to share with you is just what makes this to me so frustrating. And I'm happy that we're having this hearing immediately after the one we just saw. But really, I should put it after I should put it after some of the worst, roach cases that we've had, where people get 3, 4, 5, 6 year sentences for hurting children, and he gets a life sentence. And wait till you really find out how they gave him a life sentence and what it was for. In my opinion, it's the epitome of a broken system that does not value human, I guess, life. It doesn't have any. It's very upsetting, I guess. Let me just show you this appeal. What the court did to him, what the system did to him, is it's unexplainable in my opinion. So they gave him the habitual offender charge, and gave him a life sentence for 3 distribution counts where they were investigating him. And so he sold an undercover 3 times, and then they arrested him and they charged him with 3 felonies, first of all. So just so you can get where I'm going with this. But that's just the beginning of it. So here it says that he was charged with the amended bill with 3 counts of distribution of MDMA and 1 count of possession with intent to distribute, right? Then he initially pled not guilty. Let me zoom in a little bit. It's better. And the defendant later changed his pleas to guilty as charged. So instead of going through trial, he said, "You know what? I'll take the charge." His attorney probably said, "Do it. They'll take it easy on you." But after that, after he switches to guilty, the state said, "No, we're not going to take it easy on you because you're being considerate of our congested court system. You're not going to trial. Instead, we're going to file a multiple offender bill against you, alleging that the defendant is a 4th felony habitual offender." Now, my understanding is that he did have 1 felony, and then they got him on camera selling 3 times to an undercover. When they arrested him, they charged him with 3 more felonies to make him a 4th felony offender. Can't make it up. The defendant initially admitted to the allegations in the multiple offender bill. At a subsequent hearing, the trial court sentenced the defendant to each count 15 years. Okay, each count 15 years to run without the benefit of parole and to run consecutively. Consecutive, right? So that means that he would have to serve 15 years, 15 years, and 15 years. So they sentenced him to 45 years. So at that point, he's like, "Holy cow, you're literally putting me away for 45 years. So the defendant then submitted a motion to withdraw the guilty plea of the multiple offender bill because it's like, come on, you just literally threw the book at me. And the defendant submitted a motion to withdraw his motion to withdraw. The defendant submitted a motion to withdraw his motion to withdraw the guilty plea to the multiple offender bill. At the hearing, on the multiple offender bill, the trial court found the defendant to be a 4th felony habitual offender. So So they gave him 45 years. He said, "Come on, boy, this is not cool." So then they said, "You know what? You're a fourth felony offender." So the trial court said, "Okay, we'll vacate the previously imposed sentences. You'll get your wish." And they resentenced him on each count to life imprisonment. Do you see what happened here? Do you see what Louisiana did to this man? Why? The defendant on each count of life imprisonment or hard labor without the benefit of parole, probation, or sentence. The sentences were to run concurrently. So they're like, okay, well, we'll be nice. So it'll only be concurrent. So it's just one life sentence. The defendant made an oral motion to reconsider the sentences and advised the trial court of his intent to appeal, but no written motion to reconsider the sentence was ever submitted. And that because the attorney apparently didn't do that, but it's another different issue, I guess. The defendant ultimately filed a pro se motion for post-conviction relief, seeking an out-of-time appeal, which was granted. The defendant now appeals designation 3 assignments of error. We affirm the conviction, habitual offender adjudications, and sentences. And here they just put in notes that he was also charged with 1 count of possession of firearm, but that's not included in this appeal. He's so cute, but I don't know if you heard him. I normally don't lock the door, but okay. Facts. Due to the defendant's guilty pleas, the facts underlying the instant conviction were not fully developed. However, the state provided open file discovery. The state and the defendant agreed to stipulate that there were factual basis of the guilty pleas. Which included in the record. The defendant was arrested after St. Tammany Parish Narcotics Task Force conducted an undercover investigation into illegal activity at the defender's residence. So on November 5th, 2003, the defendant sold 12 MDMA tablets. Wow, this is a real big shot dealer over here for $240. Then, like a week later, November 12th, he sold the same he sold 10 MDMA tablets to an undercover cop for $200. Wow. He's really seems like a life sentence is earned right there. And then again on January 2nd, the defendant sold 15 MDA tablets. Now he's a real baller. It's $260, guys. I mean, come on. So surveillance of the defendant's residence during this time period revealed frequent traffic to and from the house. The defendant was arrested and charged with 1 count of possession to distribute MDMA on January 2nd. And he had cash $3,878 in his pocket. It's a lot. He's probably wrecking the entire neighborhood. And included the bills received for the sales to the undercover officer. It included the bills. He didn't even spend it. Look at that. Around the same time as the defendant's arrest, narcotic officers conducted a search of his restaurant residence. They found items with drug residue, numerous items of paraphernalia, a gun, ammunition. Officers arrested several people who were at the same residence at the time of the search, some of whom stated they had come to the residence to purchase MDMA, Mary Jane, or Pepsi Cola. But they did not state that they found Pepsi Cola. I just want to point that out. And in his assignment of error, he contends the trial court erred in finding him a 4th felony habitual offender. In support of his assignment of error, the defendant argues that his enrolled counsel was not present when he admitted to the charges. It shows that he had like a backup attorney that was there, and then they kind of go through some of those details. about how, of course, the court found him to be guilty. And here's the decree. Conviction, habitual offender, sentences affirmed. So I don't know how one looks at these facts and knowing how Louisiana works, knowing how Louisiana sentences people who sexually assault their own children for years and give them a little slap on the wrist sentence. And they take someone here and they record him selling 3 little tiny deals to the dealer, and then they give him a 45-year sentence when he doesn't go to trial. And then when he appeals that, they give him a life sentence. They gave him actually 3 life sentences because he sold 10 MDMA pills, then 15, then 12, then 15. I mean, it's nuts. I'm not saying he's a saint. I'm not saying that dealers should not be thrown in prison. Yeah, they should have thrown him in prison. But you could have thrown him in prison for any number of years. 10, 15, 20. He doesn't have any violent crimes. He doesn't have any sexual assaults on his record. He's never hurt children. He was a dealer. He wasn't selling fentanyl. He was selling MDMA. But who cares even? Well, whatever. I mean, it does. If he was a fentanyl dealer, I wouldn't feel bad for him at all. But the point is that the court system wants to lock him up for life and not give him an opportunity at parole. Why? How does that make sense? It's madness. You could have given a 20-year sentence and let him reform in the prison system. But no, they had their egos. They wanted to just throw the book at him. They wanted to, how does a judge go to sleep at night feeling good? Well, I accomplished a lot. I locked that guy up with 3 life sentences. And then we see the same judges give someone who hurt a child just a few years. How is that possible? Tell me, how is that possible? This is why we do this. We expose the good, the bad, and the ugly, and there is a lot of ugly. You can't make it up. And you probably wouldn't believe it if you didn't see it. But on that note, let's do a hearing where someone who did a horrible thing to a child was sentenced for a much shorter sentence than a life. And let's see how we feel about that one. With that, let's jump in, right?
Jim Wise, I'll be chairing today. Your case today is signed to Mr. Alvin Rochette. On the panel today is Ms. Cheryl Renonson. You're a second offender, forcible rape. You were sentenced. Your sentence was 20 years hard labor. Your parole date is 5/28/2020 with a good time not eligible full term of 5/28/2023. I see today, Mr. Clark, and we'll give you a chance to speak here in just a few minutes, Mr. Clark. This time, Mr. Roche.
Thank you, Mr. Wise. Good morning, Mr. Odom. How are you?
I'm doing good.
Mr. Odom, you're 56 years old. Am I correct?
Yes, sir.
And you served approximately 17 and a half years on a 20-year sentence. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
And you've been convicted of 2 felonies. Those felonies include violence, multiple DWIs and multiple sex offenses. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
And tell me about the programs you completed.
I got my GED. Back when they had it, I did the 12-step program,
Okay.
and that's all I completed.
Okay. So you've not had any long-term substance abuse.
No, sir.
Have you completed the sex offender treatment?
No, sir.
When was your last disciplinary write-up?
I never had one.
Okay. Mr. Wise, that completes my interview.
Okay. Miss Renaissance?
Congratulations on your conduct record. That's impressive. I don't have any other questions.
Okay. At this time, Mr. Clark, anything you'd like to say to St. Tammany Assistant DA?
Yes, basically our opposition in this case is based upon the nature of the offense, obviously the forcible rape in this case, which occurred according to the police report, over a number of years to the victim, and included actually threatening the victim at one point to not, when she had first disclosed the sexual abuse that was occurring, and then resulted in a failed polygraph test on part of the defendant or the offender in this case. Furthermore, obviously, there has been no substantive substance abuse treatment, sex offender treatment, anything of that nature. Given the nature of this case, the nature of the charge, the length of time that the sexual abuse occurred, and frankly, lack of apparently any remorse for what's happened in this case, the state would strongly oppose any parole in this matter.
Okay, thank you very much. Mr. Odoms, anything you'd like to say to the board before we vote?
No, sir.
Okay. At this time, Mr. Roche, be voting.
Mr. Odom, based upon a need for a long-term substance abuse program, you've had at least 3 or 4 arrests for DWI. You have no sex offender treatment. DA's office is strongly opposed, and the sheriff's office is in opposition also. My vote is to deny your request.
Ms. Renato?
My vote, Mr. Odom, also is to deny. I don't have confidence because of your lack of treatment that you need and the opposition that's been expressed today. So my vote today is to deny.
At this time, I'm gonna vote to deny because all reasons stated. And at this time, you have strong law enforcement judicial opposition, prior criminal history, and failed to complete. One of the things you need to be working on is your sex offender program. Board decision was today to deny your parole. Thank you very much.
Mr. Wise.
Yep. So, I mean, and 20 years sentence, that's amazing for Louisiana. I'm surprised he didn't get, just a few months. But here's a man, I mean, and this isn't the best example. I could have shown, I guess, others where he just got 2-year sentence for, but yeah, this is a man who has multiple felonies, who has multiple DUIs, who's done the worst to, and he only got 20 years. So how do you explain that? Well, he's lucky he wasn't selling MDMA pills. Let's see, the article here. So this was October 19th. The October 2nd, 2019, officers from Somerville Police Department responded to suspicious call involving a male and a female possibly fighting. The officers found the individuals and a 19-year-old female, a 50-year-old male. The female was distraught and crying, claiming the male subject had assaulted her. The male was arrested for public intoxication, and the female victim was taken to the police department. She gave further details to investigators. That resulted in the charge. That's only one of the offenses. I don't have info on the others, but there you go. And again, this is quite amazing that they even gave him a 20-year sentence. But that's Louisiana for you. But anyways, thank you for being here. This is why we do this. And with that, I'll let you go.
Of 2031, and he's serving a 30-year sentence for the charges of forcible rape, molestation of a juvenile, and attempted aggravated rape, having been sentenced on May 29th of 2003. Is all of that accurate, Mr. Cook?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Cook, Mr. Freeman has been assigned to begin the interview process. Would you please answer any questions he may have?
Okay.
Hi, Mr. Cook. How old are you?
63 years old.
Okay, and how long have you been in jail on this charge?
August 24th will be 21 years.
All right, and what was your educational level?
As of now?
Yeah, as of now.
Yes, sir. Okay, well, I have a high school diploma. I graduated in 77, and since then I've gone through the training course on Christian education. And in Cornerstone University at Allen, I received a bachelor's degree over there on Christian education. And here at Angola, I'm in New Orleans Baptist Theological Seminary, and I just received the BA for completing the college here on Christian counseling and Christian ministry.
Okay.
And I've taken all the courses that I'm required to take, for this board hearing right here.
We'll get to that. Okay, so you were originally charged with aggravated rape, correct?
Yes, sir. Then they changed it.
Right, they changed it because of a plea bargain. Is that correct? And they offered you 30 years?
I guess that's why they changed it. I'm not sure why they changed it. All I know is when I received my rap sheet, they had forcible rape on there.
Okay. Why don't you tell me a little bit about, first off, what was your relationship to these two victims?
Well, Paige was my step granddaughter. She was the daughter of Samantha, who is the daughter of, excuse me?
Go ahead.
We have a delay right here. Paige is my step granddaughter, and I guess the other little girl, Taylor, she was a good friend of Paige's. They went to school together, and that's what the relationship was.
And how often would they come to visit?
Well, Paige was pushed off on me every weekend. Her mother wanted me to come out there and pick her up and watch her from Sunday to Monday and bring her back Monday night.
Okay. Why don't you tell me a little bit what happened and tell the truth. What exactly happened between you and these two girls?
Well, Paige came into my room the night that she lost her virginity, okay? And she came in my room and I'm laying on my bed watching television, drinking a beer, and she climbs up on me like a puppy and puts her tail right in my face, and she tells me to kiss her. And so I kissed her, and she said, "Stick your tongue out, Paw Daddy." So I stuck my tongue out, and she said, "Make it hard, Paw Daddy, make it stiff." And when I did, she pushed herself so hard on me, on my face, and she took her virginity on my tongue.
And I said, Paige, I said, why'd you do that? She got up, she just went back in her room. And the next day, which was a Sunday, we went out there to the country and picked up Taylor, her friend. And the next morning, Monday morning, I got up. I mean, it did nothing happen, but I got up next morning and Paige was in the bathroom and she started hollering for my name. And so when I got up, she said, go in there and wake up Taylor. So I went in there and I laid down beside Taylor. They had a little 4-inch mattress on the floor. She didn't have a bedstead. And so I laid down beside Taylor. I started brushing her hair out of her eyes. And I said, Taylor, honey, wake up. And she opened her eyes and when she looked at me, she was in total shock. And I said, Taylor, I said, it's me, Paul Daddy. And she didn't say anything. She was still in shock. And so I got up and I backed out of the room. Now, grant you, I was naked, okay, because I always sleep naked in my bed. And I backed out of the room and to make a long story short, took her home and she told her daddy that I slept with her and tried to rape her, which is not true.
You walked into a young girl's room naked, is what you're trying to tell me. You didn't think nothing was wrong with walking into that little girl's room naked?
Well, sir, I had no conscience about sin, none, right from wrong. That's just how lost I was. I was lost in my depraved, immoral attitude. And that's just how I was. I mean, I was living a life as a single man. And so.
Did you ever give those girls something to drink?
Yes, sir. I had the little bottle of, I forget what they call them, Breeze or something like that. And I asked them if they wanted one. They said yes. So I opened it up for them and gave it to them. And they took one sip and that was it. They didn't drink anything out of that bottle other than a sip.
So if they say that one of the little girls said they drank 4 or 5 and even got sick, that's not true?
No, sir.
Is it true that one time you walked in the bedroom naked and had lotion on your hand and masturbated in front of the girl?
Yes, sir.
That's the truth.
They told me they want to see that white stuff.
How old were these victims?
I think 10.
And they were that educated that they wanted to see that white stuff.
Yeah. I don't know where they got their education.
Did you watch dirty movies with them?
No, sir.
So they're lying if they said y'all laid on the couch and watched dirty movies.
Say it again.
I said that the victims were lying if they said that y'all laid around and had watched dirty movies.
Yes, sir. I never laid around with those two to watch anything. Okay, I had my VCR in my bedroom and they both went in my bedroom and locked my door. Okay, and next thing I know, I heard the VCR going and I somehow unlocked the door. It had a little screen latch door on it. And I got in there. I said, what are y'all doing? And they started giggling and laughing and I turned that VCR off and made them get out of the room.
What else happened? Were there any other acts of sexual arousement that you did with these little girls?
Not that I can think of. Well, I've just told you right here.
Do you think you victimized these 2 little girls?
Oh, absolutely. I'm very, very remorseful for all of the actions, the evil actions I took around these children. Okay. And I promise that will never happen again. And so when I was born again, after I came to prison, that's when I started realizing, when I got in that Bible and started realizing how evil I was and how evil mankind is. Okay, until they receive God's spirit and can understand right from wrong.
The DA is strongly opposed, said you already got a break when you took the plea agreement. Sheriff officers opposed, chiefs is opposed. Did you write a letter to the aunt admitting the charges?
I wrote a letter to Samantha. That's not her aunt.
Who is Samantha?
Samantha is Paige's mother.
You have a low risk. You've had 0 write-ups, which is pretty amazing. You've completed sex offender treatment. What did you learn from your sex offender treatment?
Well, I learned that every immoral action of sex is wrong.
Shows that you're a 4th felony offender. Were you ever on supervision?
Say again, I don't understand you.
It says that you're a 4th felony offender. Have you ever been on supervision?
4th felony offender. It's the first time I came to prison.
You don't have to be a felony offender not to come to prison. Maybe I might not be.
I don't quite understand what the question is meaning, though.
You were first. Okay, that's my mistake. I wrote it down wrong. It is.
He's a first.
Okay. I have no question.
Warden, what can you tell us about Mr. Cook?
I can tell you that he's an NOBTS graduate. He completed his sex offender treatment. We do have found sex offender housing with Rescue Mission Global Outreach in Baton Rouge. And it will provide transitional help and probation and parole appointments. No DV reports, and he is a low risk on the titer. And he works as a clergy on MAG 3.
Thank you, Warden. Appreciate your comments. Mr. Cook, is there anything you'd like to say to the board before the board votes?
Well, sir, I would just like to say how remorseful and sad I am for the evil actions I took 21 years ago, which have not been repeated since I've been in prison. And they will not be repeated from hereafter.
Thank you very much, Mr. Cook.
If I may add, sir, if I may add, this is the name of the ministry God gave me. It's Bless the Lord Jesus Ministry. Amen.
Freeman, ready to vote?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Mr. Cook, I totally don't believe you've been honest with me whatsoever today. There's a lot more stuff went on, and these little girls 10 years old, and they can't make up all of this stuff. And I just wasn't going to get into it with you because you were so determined not to tell us everything that happened with these 2 children. So my vote is to deny.
Thank you, Mr. Freeman. Ms. Jackson?
Mr. Cook, you may have completed sex offender treatment, but it has had no impact on you whatsoever. For you to say that 10-year-old children came on to you sexually and forced themselves on you sexually shows me that you've got a serious psychological problem and it hasn't been addressed. I just cannot in good conscience vote to believe. So my vote today is to deny.
Mr. Cook, you have 2 votes to deny. I agree with my colleagues. My vote likewise is to deny. Good luck to you, sir. We'll close out. It's 1:05. Thank you. Thank you, Warden, for all your help.
Y'all welcome.
Bless the Lord Jesus, sir.
Cockroach. Oh my gosh. What did we just see? Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? This one might take the cake. I mean, I don't even know what that. Of course, he does the whole church thing, right? And I'm pretty sure. I mean, I've never seen a salute like that, but that looked reminiscent of Nazi Germany, didn't it? Who's more to blame? Let me ask you this. This cockroach, or the system that gives him a low risk score? A low risk score? Are you nuts? The system gives him a low risk score? Why? I am sick and tired of it. We are sick and tired. How? I don't care how many PhDs you have. I don't care what school you graduated from when you put together this algorithmic risk score. You have to have one conversation with this cockroach to know that he is going to reoffend. As Miss Jackson said, there is something missing in his brain. So many words. He at his parole hearing, did you see him say what he said? He blamed it on the girls. The words that he said, she said, "Give it to me, daddy." A 10-year-old girl. The way that he was talking about it, he had a grin on his face. He was back there and enjoying every moment of repeating what had happened. He's nuts. We have seen all kinds of roaches. There are roaches that are very manipulative. They know what to say. There are roaches that think they're manipulative, but it's very clear that they're not very good at it. And then there are that are just completely, he actually believes what he said. And when the board told him otherwise, he's looking at them like, what? What happened? I just had the best interview of my life. And he really thinks what he just shared with us. She was pushed onto me every weekend. What mother has little girls stay at a stepfather's house alone? You gotta be kidding me. And they're divorced? I don't get it. If they're not, like, what do you mean? She came into my room that night, the night she lost her virginity. She came into the room. It was her fault. She jumped on the bed. Like a what do you say? Like a dog? You just can't make it up. You just can't make this up. He says, now he's talking about his daughter's friend. He walks into the room. He lies down next to her. He starts brushing her hair out of her head. And she looks at me with this face of terror. And he didn't know why, so he got up and left. Oh, he was naked, And it's like, and they ask him why, and he says, I was living the life of a single man. Dude, these are 10-year-old babies. What are you talking about? I'm living the life of a single man. That's what he said. He just came to the parole board and said that these girls came on to him. And what can he do? He's living the life of a single man. And he has a low risk score and no write-ups. That's the first indicator that something's wrong. What did he learn in his sex offender program? He learned that immoral act of sex is wrong. That was his answer. The immoral act of sex is wrong. Oh, what are you talking about? Low risk score. And then his final speech is he's been there for 20 years and nothing like this has happened. Dude, there are no 10-year-old girls in prison. That's right. And you should be locked up for the remainder of your life. Today, he is 64 years old. He will complete his 30-year sentence in 2033, in 10 years from now. He will be 74. That is plenty of years to harm more little girls. And if he gets out, he will. Oh, he has a low risk score. Maybe my bad. How could I say that? Wake up, people. This is why we do this, because, you know, it's a beautiful thing that we can watch these hearings and we can see how broken the system is and how evil does exist and how crazy exists and how none of it will make sense because the state of Louisiana has some type of system that says that is a low risk score, and there is no one with any type of common sense, I believe, that can see this and say, you're right, low risk score. So stop it. Stop using a system that clearly does not work. The data from the Department of Justice for the United States lists, we've gone through this before, it lists these type of offenders as the highest rate of recidivism. So how do you have a system that puts that not only common sense does it completely, what is the word I'm looking for, not align with, but also the data. The data says that your system is wrong. Stop using it. How can any of the parole board members with a straight face say, well, yeah, you're a low risk score? With that, I'll let you go.